candidates event. This year we have 4 positions available. We have 7 candidates in front of you, and this is for a 2-year term. Starts March 4th after the annual meeting all the way till 2027. And what we'll do is we have a basic outline. Every candidate will have a 2-minute opportunity to introduce themselves and give an opening statement. And then we'll go into questions, and I'll randomly choose the order for who starts on each question, so it's fair. And every candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. So let's start. We'll start here at the beginning. Elise, would you like to?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Elise Dennison. You may remember me as the mayor. I served for 8 years, which was my total term because of term limits in the city of Leesburg. Was the District 3 Commissioner, which was the big district in Leesburg with all the development and whatnot. Also Mayor Pro Tem for 2 years, and then Mayor of Leesburg for 2 years. During that term, I made sure that the taxes in Leesburg would never increase. So except for the value of the homes going up slightly, there was never a tax increase in Leesburg, and we still were able to get a lot of things done. So I hope that those of you who didn't live here before might ask some of the older folks, that not older in age, but older in term, that how was Leesburg before? What was it like? And I think that'll explain to you some of the things that I've done in this city. And I fully expect that that will be my same thing with the board of directors. I am very careful with other people's money, and it will not be spent just for the fact of let's spend the money. And you have full input on what goes on in this community because you're the owners. Okay, now I did put something on the computer concerning some of my background and whatnot. I had shortened that quite a bit because with a resume like mine, it can get rather confusing. But anybody that'd like to ask further questions on that, I was an international project manager with AT&T and Lucent Technologies, and that was in 5 continents in the world, where I did actual jobs, supervised installation, shipping, ordering, Bell Labs, and everything else. So I think I could probably handle the questions that come up on the board of directors. I also was a board of director for the state Florida League of Cities up in Tallahassee, and that was for 5 or 6 years. So I've got a varied background, and hopefully you'll be happy with that background and what I can do. Thank you.
Hey, Terry.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully everybody knows who I am at this point. I've had the pleasure and honor of serving our community for the last 2 years, not only as a director, but my first year as your vice president, currently your president on the board. I've had the pleasure of also working with our current board of directors. I not only have the background of working currently with our community, I also, prior to this, living in Key West, served on the board for close to 17 years. So I feel that I bring a lot of experience to the board. I want to continue to help make legacy grow. I want to see through our building project, which I'm very optimistic that that's going to move forward. I feel it's going to be a wonderful improvement to our community, but we all have to do and work together. So I hope that my work that I have done has shown what I'm capable of, and I just ask for your vote to move forward.
Okay, hi, I'm Todd, and my wife Lori and I have lived in Legacy for about 18 years now. We moved here from Oregon, where I was an accountant and a project manager. I have an MBA from the University of Chicago and MA CPA, although I'm not licensed at this point. I have served the community throughout the years. I've been on the finance committee as a member, as the secretary, as the vice chair and chair, and I've served on the board as a director, as the treasurer, and as a past president. I would like to continue to serve on the board of directors to maintain and improve the community in a fiscally responsible manner. It is extremely important to maintain the assets of the community, such as the roads, the buildings, the ponds, and the trails, and ensure adequate funding for future maintenance is available in our reserve fund. And finally, I am in favor of the board. One of the things I put on my statement was that I would be in favor of the new building renovation depending on the cost and if we can afford it. For those of you who have heard me over the past week, I believe that we can afford it, and I am in favor. Thank you.
Good morning. Is my mic working?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
get close.
Get
Okay.
closer.
My name is Dave Leakley. I live on Discovered Court. I'm currently a board member. I've been a homeowner in Legacy since 2006. In that time, I have seen many people come and go on the board. The current board makeup includes residents from geographically diverse areas of the community. This board is very in sync with the community's goals and desires to keep our facilities and amenities up to date and functional and attractive. This board also follows the principle to keep homeowner HOA dues reasonable without any surprises and special assessments. As in the past, I pledge to keep our costs down and only vote to approve reasonable and incremental yearly cost increases by treating association funds as I would my own budget. I know many of our homeowners are living on a fixed income, as I am, so it is important to keep our dues reasonable and predictable. I would like you to consider voting for me as a candidate to the board, and I would also urge you to vote yes to approve the funds necessary to update and improve our clubhouse complex. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm John President. I want to break into this board and help to bring my background. 20 years as a community association manager in Central Florida, to use that to be able to help our community to move forward with the projects we've got going now. Hopefully, the renovation project will pass. I've also got 12 years as Director of Operations for a telecommunications company with 14 sites from Fort Pierce to Key West and over 200 employees that were responsible for me. I think new blood on the board might be a good thing, and if that's going to happen, I'd certainly appreciate it if it were me. Thank you.
Good morning. If you're trying to find me in Legacy along the way, just drive around and you'll find a bamboo in the front yard. If you want to come up with a name for me, one of the students that I'm still in touch with for the last 60 years or so, along the way, still call me Mr. Ross, but it's probably better as Rod. It's kind of different and unusual in our committee to find candidates, most of the candidates being here for somewhere around 16 years. I moved in 2006, but I started up here in 2005 doing some things along the way. If people haven't read the candidate statement, I'm not going to go through those different ideas. I want to point out when I get to it along the way, what makes things work, not what I did and all these other sorts of things along the way. Roughly, I've been retired 32 years. I became principal of a public school when I was 24 years old along the way. So if you haven't read the statements, take a look at it again. I read all the statements of the board members, candidates that are here, and we have outstanding candidates for you to choose from. I think every person that's a candidate is well qualified and an excellent selection. I want to do something a tad bit rare before I go into a couple other things along the way, but I believe there's a function that has not been spoken to as much within our community, and we have one person sitting at the other end of the table along the way that has served the city of Leesburg for a remarkable long period of time with excellence. Elise Dennison along the way has brought legacy needs to the city of Leesburg, and I feel she would bring a big benefit of our residents to the city of Leesburg with some sorts of cooperation along the way.
Thank you, Robert.
I've only gotten started.
Well, you can continue to step, sir.
Time's up. Time's up.
The table along the way, but anyhow.
Time's up.
Let me start all the candidates. They all prep for 2 minutes, and everybody gets 2 minutes, that's it. So we're gonna move on to our next question, our first question. And we'll start with Terry on this one. Can you describe one issue you think Legacy will need to face and in the near future and how you would address it? And after you, it'll be Todd, Dave, and go that direction, and then Glenn, please.
Sure. I don't really necessarily think this is an issue, but I feel it's very important. And that is that we will need to keep a watchful eye on the building renovation once the project passes, which, as I and several of the members up here are very optimistic it will. We need to ensure that everything runs smoothly. That is our obligation to you all. It's going to be very important that we have everything in place prior to that, working very closely with our CAM office for such things as like the temporary offices, the bathrooms as they talked about, the storage. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's going to take all of us to work with our CAM to get this done. We also will need to keep the community informed as to the progress as the project moves along, because this is something that's going to be very instrumental and beneficial to our community. Thank you.
So I now see the disadvantage in going second, because I would also say the building project is probably one of the biggest things we're going to do. I would see one of my roles on that is it's going to have to be pretty tightly controlled. We are going to have a large amount of contingency funds that hopefully will not be spent, or if they're spent in a responsible manner. I would be tracking a lot of that spending as I would the rest of the board. So I see that as a huge communication effort from the board out to the community, which will be challenged even more because we won't be able to do things like this because this building will be shut. So I think that'll be a challenge. The other thing I just think we need to keep an eye on is the reserves and specifically how that goes with roads. We tend to get maybe every 18 months we have our road consultants sort of give us an update on what the cost for the roads are going out about 20 years. And I think it's important just that we keep focus on that because that's an expense that if we don't monitor could not really buy us. Thank you.
I'd like to reiterate what Terry and Todd have said. I also feel that the management and oversight of the construction and updated improvements for clubhouse complex are the most important thing we'll be doing in the near-term future, meaning in the next 6 to 12 months. I can tell you that the current board of directors has worked diligently for the last 2 years to get us to this point. And several of the board members have spent a lot of time with the building committee, with plans, with working with the CAM, working with the architect in order to get us to the point to where we're now coming out to community to ask for the funds to complete the upgrade. It's very important, as Todd stated, to keep the cost down and within budget. We expect to do that. We think we've built a budget that supports the entire project. We've been very thorough, and so has Josh and his staff, to come up with a list of costs and things that need to be done so that we don't have any surprises. But as Todd also mentioned, we have built in a 15% contingency fund to handle any unforeseen findings as they get into the building construction. We also want to keep the impact to the residents and the amenities at a minimum as construction proceeds. So in other words, we want to make sure that the amenities, as Josh mentioned last night, stay open and available to the community so they can continue to use them, to include, you know, our sports courts and our pool. That means that we'll have to work closely with the contractor to ensure that we don't take those away for any extended period of time. Thank you.
Looking at it a little differently, I don't see, because of our current management team here in the community, I don't see an issue that could happen in the near future that has not been already spoken about and addressed. What I do see is I see the possibility of the quality of our life not increasing. I see it going bad simply because of what the city of Leesburg is doing and approving buildings so close to us and impacting our roads and infrastructure. I think the solution to this would be for the board of directors here to become more involved in city politics, making sure that they're protecting what we've got here from the outside. Traffic right now along our major roads, 27 and 48, is pretty poor. Sometimes it can take 20 minutes to a half hour to get up into downtown Leesburg. That makes no sense. That's got to be controlled. I can't say stopped, as some other areas have done, but it's got to be controlled. And I think we really need to get into city politics to affect that. Thank you.
As a principal and as a select man in the community along the way, I always felt that you had to get all the people that are involved with the learning experience together along the way. So I'm thinking about that Legacy should take a look at legacy committees. It's my suggestion that the committee serve as a CAN resource. The CAN's the one that should be managing this community, not the board. If they are the resource, then they'll be able to get the information to them directly in the first place. Some parts of the problem with committee things is board communication outside board meetings. I've had liaisons come in and be doing input to the committee that wasn't necessarily the input of the rest of the board members along the way. So we took one step along the way of creating a email address for each of the board members. I believe a step in open communication that would be open to the community would be one email address for all board members along the way, so that the information shared on that email address becomes public information, which would be similar to the information being shared by many city councils and all these other sorts of organizations. Thank you.
I am not going to discuss the building. This is not the only thing that this board is addressing. What I'm going to address is the fact that one of the things I see in the future, and that's not just for Legacy, it's for all of Florida. If you all remember the beginning of 2000, how we went through a housing crisis and the total bottom dropped out of the housing because of non-documentation loans and all the games the banks were playing and whatnot. Well, now Florida's facing insurance woes. They're facing insurance for cars. So what do we do with this? Well, first of all, it's causing the price of houses to start a major drop. So everybody that thought your house was going up, this is great. So are your insurance rates, which you all have been hit with so far. And that's only going to get worse. So we've got a housing glut, which is going to get worse because of the city commission building everything they want to. So we're going to have hundreds of houses sitting on the market and not being able to be sold, and that's going to affect you. So one of the things that are going to have to be addressed in the future by the board and the CAM is the fact that, yes, you may need to increase some of your fees, because as the insurance market continues to blast us, we're going to have to raise more money to be able to handle the insurance on the common areas. It doesn't have to be done wildly or tremendous amounts, or as Todd said, special assessments. We don't want special assessments. Believe me, I don't want special assessments. But it's a situation that's going to hit all of Florida plus other states. And now with the wildfires and everything else, you realize that we are covering the insurance for all these disasters. So as insurance companies start pulling out and whatnot, we're all going to be facing this. So we've got to come up with a plan on how we can attack that situation. It's not coming out of the city, it's not coming out of the state. So we've got to get together and start thinking about what can we do to help offset this, to protect our investments. So I think we've got a lot more to think about in the future, and I mean the very near future, of how to protect ourselves. So I plan on getting involved with that. Thank you.
Okay, next question. We'll start with Todd on this one. Of the many roles and responsibilities you will face as a legacy board member, name the one you feel most qualified to address.
Well, this one's pretty simple. It's not pretty simple. My whole life I've spent in the accounting and in the finance world, and I think the one different skill I bring to the board is my ability to look at the financials and try to help the board understand them and make sure they understand what type of choices and trade-offs we need to make within those financials.
Thank you.
I would say that the one I feel most passionate about is the fact that I need to, as a board member, to represent all legacy homeowners, to ensure that the board keeps costs low and the community in a pristine condition on a continuous basis. As Todd Keschlein has said, we are a frugal, he says cheap, board, meaning we manage the money very closely, as if it were our own, which it is. It belongs to all of us, it comes from all of us, and we want to make sure that we spend that money very frugally and in an appropriate manner. And we don't go out and do silly things like we know some of these other local communities have done that surround us. Thank you.
Okay, looks to me like my 20 years experience as a community association manager, and 18 of them here in Central Florida, I feel I'm most qualified to address issues with the covenants and the statutes that control homeowners associations and corporations. I work with the legal firms in every one of the communities that I manage, and I was told about 30 of them. And I was very successful in what I did, and I hope to bring that to us as well. Thank you.
I'm kind of back to the beginning again along the way, but asking you a question, I've missed one of them along the way, but this one is, what would bears be without bees? Ears. Well,
Oh,
then we got the bears out of the way. My past experiences here in Legacy along the way included, from the very beginning, development of surveys. And the amenities committee at that time, which I was chair of, started to figure out that the best way of getting information that the board at that time, who was Pringle appointees, wanted to know what sort of amenities and things that the residents of Legacy would like to add to the whole project along the way. I think surveys can produce feedback in many directions. They can provide better information than I heard. So I would like to be able to work on communications and relations to our residents.
Thank you, Rod.
Okay, I really feel qualified. I was talking last night during the town hall session. They kept asking for a project manager that's gonna run this whole thing. And I kept sitting there thinking, well, I've been doing that all over the world, but do I want to get involved in this? Because everybody's an expert. So I can watch out that we don't get deeper than we should into this, into the building project. In addition to that, my background in bank management, international contract law, and several other things that you don't know about. I'm ready for anything that comes up, and anything that becomes either an issue or a potential issue. And again, I listen to the people that are in the community, just like I listen to the people that are in the town. I don't make these decisions totally on my own, and I am perfectly willing to hear a debate on something that I might have said and you have a different feeling about. So I think the fact that I have been in so much management and whatnot, I think that's my best qualification to be on the board. Thank you.
It's hard to follow all of them. However, I think a lot of my past experience working on with this board, but in other communities, and also prior to retiring, working as a manager in a state agency, it has helped me learn and given me the skills to truly listen to the needs and concerns of all of us around us. And I think that's really critical. We need to listen and work with our residents. And as Lisa just said, we need to consider everybody's opinions. That's how we all learn and that's how we all grow, as well as our community. In addition to that, I also headed up different projects where I worked. I also worked with contractors, developed bids and what have you. So moving forward, when these sorts of things come up, I feel my knowledge in that area will also be critical. And I also worked in the finance division of my company for many years. So, our prep with our budget, keeping things in line of making sure that we stay within our means is so important. So I feel that is also very helpful with my past experience. I also sat on the finance committee before becoming a board member. I feel that we can all work together to really accomplish what we need, but I'm looking forward to that in the future.
Thank you, Terry. So we'll move on to question number 3. Dave, if you'd like to tell us about your favorite Legacy Club committee or activity that you participate in?
I would be glad to. My favorite is bocce. I'm an avid bocce club member and player. It is a way, I think, to have fun while interacting with fellow homeowners in the community. You get to know a lot of people that you might not know otherwise. You establish relationships. We have fun out there playing with each other. It's more camaraderie than it is competition, I think. And I highly recommend all residents who live in Legacy join us in the bocce club because it's low impact. It gets you out in the fresh air, sometimes a little chilly in the morning, especially lately, but we do enjoy it, and we have a good bunch of people. And any of the days that we have bocce, means Monday through Thursday, we have usually openings so we can have people fit in it too. So I would invite you to do that. Thank you.
favorite. That's hard to say. There are so many that are good and so many fun places. Initially, the New York Club, run by Mark Naxon, now the Empire Club. The activities, or other clubs or committees, I patrol with Neighborhood Watch every week. I'm also a member of the Neighbor to Neighbor Club, and that I think is one of the key clubs in this area that is not, it's not publicized so much, and people don't realize unless you have a catastrophe, Neighbor to Neighbor is just sitting back waiting for something to happen so that we can help. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, for 18 years, I've had one club that got things done along the way and had a lot of fun. So Theater Legacy has provided ways for our residents to participate in spreading live, laugh, and love to our friends and our neighbors. It is actually shown as part of a process along the way that when there was a discussion about the need for rooms in this space along the way, we were actually in our second full show filled up 2 performances for 200 people. Corral, 2 performances for 360 people. So if you want to step back and think about it along the way, did you actually need 300 to 350 seat places in this when somebody was designing something prior to the current building project?
Thank you, Robert. Please.
Okay, one of the things that I've been on, I have been here since the fall of 2006 permanently, has been one of my favorite things, were the legacy games, where we had our own Olympics and whatnot, and everybody got involved in that. It didn't matter what you could do, what you couldn't do, everybody was part of that, including an award ceremony at the end of the games. So I'd like to see that come back. I also was on the softball team, I was the pitcher with Spanish Springs down the road. One of the things I'd like to see though, and the other thing which Josh is ultimately involved with, I was on the committee with Todd and Diane Gatto and myself and a couple other people that selected Leland to come back in here as our CAM. And we really worked that one out because we checked 2 or 3 other companies. And so we're responsible for this. I accept that. One of the things I'd like to see us lean toward is activities for the seniors that are starting to, including myself, starting to have mobility issues. When I was over in China a few years ago, along the bank every morning you would see groups of adults, mostly seniors, out there doing Tai Chi and whatnot. Very slow, very core-centric, to be able to build up, core and balance and everything else. So I'd like to see that investigated a little bit, so that maybe we can come up with some of these programs and start to include everybody. I think that's probably it for me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I have kind of 2 favorite things. One of them is playing against Dave on Mondays. There might be some words and whatever going on there, but we come out on the other end. And then if I don't get tired of him then we bowl against each other on Tuesdays. So for a lot of people, they don't know, we do have a bowling league, and it is a lot of fun, and we're getting more teams every year. So I encourage people to come out and do that. Also, since I've been here, either being a liaison over the last couple years, or also just sitting in a lot of the committee meetings, I think knowledge is sitting in and learning. I've had the pleasure of working with ENC, ARC, and Sports and Fitness now. We have such really great committees in our community that really help all of us. They work very hard, and I have learned quite a bit from them, and I really thank them for all the work they do as well. Thank you.
Okay, so although I'm a two-time shelf award champ, so I just wanted to bring that up. I'm gonna say my favorite activity is the flea market. And it's not just because Lori runs it. It's honestly one of those times in the year, for me, I get to meet and talk to more residents than at any other time. They're either volunteering, we're picking up stuff and we're bringing it down, it's being priced, they're coming out on Friday night to buy the stuff. For me, it's just a nice opportunity to see a whole bunch of folks I don't see in the other parts of the year, have brief conversations. Some of the folks, they aren't as brief as I would probably like, but, you know, that's on my own thing. And so as long as I'm here, the flea market is on the 21st of next month, and the sign-up sheets are up. So I hope that makes up for what I said at the board, at the other board meeting.
Thanks, Todd. So moving on to question 4, and we're going to start with John on this one. Do you intend to watch board meetings, and do you feel most meetings are productive?
Well, this one's pretty easy. I do attend and watch when watch is available. And are most meetings productive? Absolutely. I think the board, the current board, and the management team associated with it are doing an excellent job here in the community. And yes, I do attend.
Some people just come to kind of wonder where the past is along the way when I'm talking about a couple of things. So I'm going to go back to the past again. Do I attend board meetings? Well, first one I attended was in Eustis. And probably have missed 2 or 3 since then. But why we went to Eustis wasn't because this place was closed. That's where the office was for the meetings. Meetings over the years have changed, and I would truly like to have us consider in some ways whether there are too many meetings. The meetings that we've been having, I want to give a whole group of credit to along the way. They have been productive, and they have worked along the way, but people, are they always saying the only reason, do we get people on the board that want to put in all this time? And is that actually the way HOAs work along the way? I know there are HOAs where the board in a nonprofit corporation only meet occasionally along the way, and the rest of the time, the place is managed by managers, the CAN, or actually a hired board. Thank you.
Yes, I have attended board meetings. As a matter of fact, this week I've been to 2. You've got to understand something. Years ago, when board meetings were held, a lot of times it was shout matches. People tried to stand up and talk and ask questions and whatnot, and they'd be shouted down. That's not a board meeting. That's not Robert's Rules of Order. Something could have been done at that point to stop it, but it wasn't. So bringing the new Leland in, and I do say the new Leland because we had them before, has improved that tremendously. And the meeting I went to the other night was run just like a real Robert Rules of Order meeting. And that's the way it should be. We don't tell you what's supposed to be done. We don't tell you how to do something or you can't do this. You tell us. And by working hand in hand and with each other, that's going to improve even more. But I think you're seeing the meetings grow much better. And I think this understanding between the groups will continue to grow. So I think that's mostly it. I really like the fact that it is improving. that the board gets along, that some of the backstabbing and whatnot that we've seen in the past isn't quite as bad, and if we keep working at it, it'll get even better. Thank you.
Well, I'm very proud to say that the board, I feel, has worked very well over the last several years. We appreciate each other. We have differences of opinion, but we respect those differences. I've only missed a couple of meetings, and most of that's because I was traveling, but it was probably 2 or 3 over the whole past 2 years. So I feel being here is extremely important. And I do feel that we have been very productive. We've gotten so many projects under our belt taken care of. We had the road project last year. We have one getting ready to start this year. We've been working on the building. This board works very hard, and I look forward to hopefully continuing to work with them and getting more stuff done for you all. Thank you.
So I do attend board meetings, I guess as a board director, that's one of the things I got to do. When I wasn't on the board, I tended to watch them, and then before that, I tended to attend most of the meetings since I've moved here. The one thing I'm going to say is I believe that almost all of the board meetings are very productive. But I think in some folks' minds, there's a correlation between productive and brief, and that's not true. So the board had some very long meetings when we went through the ARC rules, just as an example. And I think that's good, because there are 7 folks on the board. We're trying to put rules in place for the community. And a board meeting is one of the few times the board can sit down and talk about this stuff. We're not allowed to go and huddle in the corner because of the Florida rules, which I fully support. So don't equate productive with facts. As long as the board's having a good, honest conversation and they're disagreeing about stuff and they're explaining it to each other, to me, that's a productive meeting. So I do tend to think they have been productive. Thank you.
To answer this particular question, I want to say I attend and participate in board meetings as a current board member. Prior to this term on the board, I attended or watched all board meetings on television, most times attending. As Terry and Todd have said on answer to this question, I think the current makeup of the board, the one that exists today, that will be in place until March, we all respect each other, we listen to each other, we exchange ideas. We sometimes convince one or another that we have a better idea, and we allow ourselves to listen to the thoughts of the other board members, to consider their thoughts and input. And I will tell you myself, I have changed my mind a number of times on a number of issues based on input from my fellow board members. I appreciate every one of them, the time and effort that they put in. Both what you see in board meetings and also behind the scenes when they're reading things that we have to keep up with the changes and situations that the CAM has to deal with. We don't micromanage, by the way, the CAM. We allow, the president does most of the talking for the board to the CAM. We may at times, as board members, go and talk to the CAM. They ask a question like a homeowner or a resident would, just so we can be better informed. But this board is very well versed when they come to the meetings. They've prepared their thoughts and ideas. And Terry runs, as the president, as the current president of the board, she runs a very tight board meeting. She allows each person at least 2 rounds to speak to a subject matter. And I think, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I would ask you to consider those folks running for the existing board positions that they hold today, that you would consider them. Because I think we're doing a good job. I would like to believe that. And I would also ask for your vote. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to The next question, we'll start with you on this one, Rod. Board member decisions are bound by governing documents in Florida Statute 720. Which legacy documents are you most familiar with?
Well, I actually have read, and as part of the committee, we actually spent time discussing and preparing proposal for each of those documents along the way. One of my side thoughts is along the way, well, it's valuable to know the documents, understand the documents. The most valuable part of that is the follow along the way. Some documents, we actually have documents that are, on our website that have considerable contradictions in them. So backing up what one of the previous candidates had talked about, there is a need to go back and take a look and make sure that the documents are cohesive and agree with each other and also follow the law out of the process. But I would point out that we live for today, we plan for the future, but we learn from the past. And I point that out because there's a whole bunch of documents that I don't believe people have read. It's because there's a contradiction as we move forward with the plans if we still have documents in place that people haven't read. Thank you.
Rock brings up a good point. That is to get rid of the old rules and regulations that have been sitting there for so long that they have been written with contradictions and whatnot. So that is a good idea to go through those rules and whatnot and discuss them a little bit, clean them up. I know the city did that years ago too. We had some rules back to the 1800s, and it didn't quite matter that there was dirt on the main street. So that actually is a good idea. And I have read the covenants, and I've read the covenants of Leesburg and whatnot. And I'm familiar with FS 720 up to the new rules that went in this year into effect from the state. I do think those are a guideline. We have to make sure what's legal. You're not going to get much help from the state government on this. There's other things that they're involved with right now. So all I can say is, Rod, you've got a good idea there. Yes, I realize governing documents and whatnot do take precedence in a lot of things, but we can actually help go through those and make sure they're up to date. Thank you.
Well, very familiar with 720, have been for years, and as a result of that, also our covenants, our bylaws, and our rules and regulations. It is our responsibilities, especially as Lisa's just saying, that we keep up and change those documents to keep up and current with the current additions and changes to 720. So yes, we do need to constantly review those and see where we can make changes and where it's important to do that. But I am very familiar with all of those and will continue to stay on top of it.
So as a board member, I am familiar with all of those. You literally have to sign something now under state law that once you become a director, you are familiar with all of this, and or you have taken a class in order to get your knowledge of it. I think the most important thing here to me, because I've been off and on the board since about 2009, is they change. Certainly 720 changes all the time. We talk about updating some of our own rules, and I certainly agree with that. I know the finance committee just has a standing rule. They update and review their rules every 2 years. So one of the challenges for me is I remember the first set of financial policies we have. So So I think the big thing here is that you need to know what's in them, but then you need to be smart enough to go back and check to make sure it hasn't changed when you're going to look into some. Thanks.
I'm very familiar with all the legacy in Florida Statute 720, the government governing documents and law, including the Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions, legacy bylaws, and rules and regulations. I have read all of them multiple times, as other board members have. I have taken 2 board member courses and received certificates thereof from those courses. But it's a constant, you have to keep up with the changes. As Todd just said, the legislature is constantly changing 720. There are new rules in effect that are coming into effect now for us. I believe we're considered as a large association, so we're going to have continuing education. I think, 6 hours or something?
4 hours.
What is it?
4 hours.
4 hours.
4. I thought that was for small. But anyway, we're going to have continuing education, so we'll continue to get updated on the rules and regulations. But I'm thoroughly familiar. Thank you.
I'm also familiar with the bylaws and the Declaration of Restrictions. One of the problems that I see with it is that we have so many legal amendments that you don't really know where to look. Any summary is just maybe a little helpful, but the association's legal firm can certainly help with that. There's a process called amending and restating your documents. And what that does is that takes all of the amendments that have been passed by the association and incorporates them into one document, amended and restated. That's what I feel should be in the process right now to get everything back together so we can all understand what documents we need to know. Thank you.
Okay, so the next questions, I think we're going to lump them together, so I'm going to read them because they're really simple. Basically, are you a full-time resident? How much time do you spend away from Legacy? And then how much time are you prepared to dedicate to your core responsibilities? So we'll start with Elise.
Yes, I am a full-time resident. I have been since the fall of 2008. The house was built in 2006. So yeah, this is it for me. I don't have anyone up north or out west or in the mountains of Utah, or they're all gone. This is all I have. So I am here all the time, except for probably every other year. I do take a major trip then to Asia or Southeast Asia or Egypt, places like that. But that usually is only for a few weeks a year, so I will be here. How much of my time am I prepared to dedicate? I'll dedicate everything that's needed to make sure that this is a positive experience for everyone, providing that we remain productive, that we're not having meetings daily or hourly, or there's got to be a reason behind it, what we want to accomplish. I don't like to have meetings that we just go there and sit and look at each other. I want to make sure that the meetings are conducted properly. And I'm willing to give whatever time we need to. Thank you.
So yes, I'm a full-time resident. The only time we're away is if we usually, like Elise, go overseas and take a few weeks here or there. But other than that, I am here all the time, and I will continue to give any and all time that is needed in order for us to accomplish what we need to do and to make Legacy an even better community. Thank you.
So I too am a full-time resident. Lori and I do like to travel, so we do travel a lot. We have been structuring our travels so we're home at least on the fourth weekend, the fourth Wednesday of the month, which is the normal board meeting. And you can certainly keep up, but I will not lie, we do travel maybe 8 weeks a year. And I'm assuming like everybody else out here, whatever the job's going to require. I know for me, it's been a little bit more hectic, or I've taken a little bit more time within the past few weeks without the building. You have your up times, you have your relative quiet times, and I'm certainly willing to put in whatever time it takes. Thank you.
I am a full-time resident of Legacy, and I normally spend 3 to 4 weeks away at separate times during the year for travel purposes. That's one reason why it's nice to be retired. As far as how much time am I willing to put in as the board director, I currently spend about 15 to 20 hours a month, sometimes more, working on legacy board business by reading pertinent documents and emails, attending meetings, or meeting with residents to get their input on an issue or a perceived problem. And I'm willing, as Todd and Terry have said, to spend as much time as necessary to keep up the responsibilities of the position. Thank you.
My wife and I moved here in 2006. Yes, we are full-time residents and we spend minimal time away. We really don't go visiting our relatives up north anymore. But we do go on an occasional cruise, which we're hoping to go on again next month. And that's pretty much it. We are here. Thank you.
I guess 2006 was an interesting time for people moving into Legacy. That's where I arrived. So I've been a full-time resident since then. When we asked how much time along the way, I probably have never gone more than a week, and we haven't gone as often as we should.
Thank you, Ron. We're going to start with you this time. During your time of Legacy, what is one board decision you agree with and why? And what is the second part to that is one board decision you disagree with and why?
Rod.
You're up first. What's wrong with you?
I thought we'd skip one. One of the things that was done, I thought was really creative and long overdue, was a resident celebration, and that the board created along the way. Giving credit to the people that put in so much time to make this thing work. It was an excellent decision. It was an excellent celebration of people's good work along the way. Decisions along the way, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of details of the things because I'm not sure I'm ever going to be changing them along the way. So I'm going to throw out a joke. Why is Cinderella an awful soccer fan? Because she's always running away from the ball.
I love it. All right. Bernice, you're up.
I probably not like a lot of people. If I hear something that the board's done over the past years, I kind of just, okay, let's just accept it because there's nothing that's going to be done. Now that obviously with my discussion today has changed because I think this board is doing an outstanding job. I think it's got the ability to make changes, to again, work with each other, work with the residents, to debate issues and whatnot, and not to be felt like you live here, but this is the way it is. No. There's been a lot of things over the past that I haven't been too happy about. One of them being the fact that I have a corner lot, and it seems that everybody sees my lot, so I get letters from Weeds, I get letters from everybody, I get letters from this, I get letters from that. And it's like, I was going to ask them to put a desk in CAM office, so that I could just sit there and take care of it all, you know? But I calmly go along with it, you know? It actually is important that we keep the appearance of the neighborhood up and really watch out for that, because as it ages, you know what the effect is gonna be. So, the biggest decision, obviously, has happened this week, and that's to redo this building, because it is important to this community. It's very important. And seeing the way that they have worked this issue out over the past year or so, and able to answer those questions that were brought up last night, and tell them exactly what's going on, and why certain things were done, that's the way these big decisions have got to be made. There's no hidden agenda. We're all in this together. So I really appreciate that fact has been done this year. I don't really disagree with anything, because it didn't take the opportunity to get involved in the past. I was a little busy with the city. So I just, lived as it is. And I think that really, the decision this week is probably the most important, and the one that I agree with the most. Thank you.
Well, one of the things I was on the lighter side, one of the things that I was really happy to see is that this current board did reinstate several of the different committees that had been done away with by prior boards. And also, in addition to all the other stuff we reviewed, we also updated the general charter of the committees. And the board members have really taken seriously their positions as liaisons with these committees. I think it's really important, and the fact also we rotate them out each year, because we're able to fully understand, get a better feeling for them, what they do, and what our communities need, because they do represent various aspects and areas of the community. I can't really pinpoint something I disagree. I know it sounds probably, kind of self-serving since I'm on the board. However, I think this board has worked very hard over the last 2 years, and we've accomplished a lot. We've seen, as I mentioned earlier, the road projects that we've gotten done. We've got another one that's getting ready to start now. This building project, the board has worked very hard on. We've worked as a team, and I'm really excited that's moving forward. The other thing that I thought was really good over the last 2 years, Diane Stanley started this, and then Todd, as our treasurer and our finance committee, has worked really hard, was investing our money soundly in our CDs. That has brought in a really good, decent influx of money, which has helped offset a lot of our costs. We started the pilot project on Pine Straw Pond to help clean that up with the aerators and solar power, which seems to be doing quite well. So that's going well. We've given it a good fight to help the invasives, and also getting our trails up to date where they need to be. The one thing I just want to make sure I stress, that no one individual could or should do this alone. Thank you.
Okay, so the one thing that I agree with the most that the board has done is the building, and not so much just for the fact that they're doing the building, but for the way that they worked on it for the past 2 years now. I will not take credit for that, because I joined the board in March of this year, or last year. But I think the way the board built up to the decision with all the community with all the community input was great. I fully support that. The board does not always vote unanimously. So there have been things that I have disagreed with while I've been on the board. So an example of one is in August of this year, we came up with a bunch of different things to sort of enhance the community with. Some were removing some of the invasive trees and some other things. What I voted for, and the majority of the board voted against, was to spend about $6,200 as sort of the first step on the ad hoc tree committee recommendations that were presented to the board maybe 10 months ago. So now, it's not an earth-shattering thing. The board probably will revisit this at some point. the majority of the board felt they didn't want to do it now, they wanted to conserve funds. Curiously enough, I was one who was more ambitious in wanting to try to get this done. So the board does disagree. I mean, not all votes are set, and honestly, you don't want all votes to be set. You want some amount of respectful, honest disagreement. So I harbor no bad feelings about this, but I think it is important to say there are times we just don't agree. Thanks.
I completely agree with the previous board's decision to change the director positions from precinct-based to at-large positions. I think that has helped to get us a good set of talent on the board. As I mentioned earlier, we have a good geographic representation on the board. In other words, we have individual of the 7 people, they kind of cover the community geographically. So that's also good, without having to restrict ourselves to a particular precinct to have a person on. As far as a board decision that I would say I disagreed with, a previous board did away with the Sports and Fitness Committee. I'm pleased that the current board reinstated that committee, as I believe sports are an important part of our lifestyle here in Legacy. That committee doesn't meet monthly. They meet only when required, but I think they do good work. And I think that we have a great sports program here in Legacy. And I'd also like to add, as Todd said, we don't always agree on the board with each other, but we listen to each other respectfully. We may vote against a particular motion, but we are still friends. We're still part of a cohesive group, and we still like each other at the end of the day. And that's a good thing. Thank you.
What decision do I agree with? Well, that's pretty simple. For me, one of the most important things that the board has done is enhanced our security by, number one, putting cameras and locking gates at the RV yard, and then putting cameras at all of the gates, including changing the 48 gate to resident only. I think that makes a lot of difference in the community and who comes through and what they're going to do when they get here. We've been pretty lucky with it, and I think, with the exception of the sidewalks that they put around the gates, that just didn't make sense to me, but I was not on the board at the time. So, as far as which one do I disagree with? Well, when they were building that building across the street there, or planning to build that building across the street, they didn't take into account all of the people who face that from their backyards. So one of the things the board is supposed to do, and our board currently does, is takes into account all of the people in the community, not just some. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, last question, and we'll start with you, John. Have you served in a leadership role in your career? And if so, please provide an example that illustrates your leadership or management ability.
John.
John.
Yeah, sorry, we're sticking with you.
Yeah, we can start with you.
All right. Yes, I've served in several management positions. The last 20 years as a community association manager. Prior to that, I worked for a company called Intermedia Communications, which was eventually bought out by WorldCom. And I was their director of operations for South Florida. I ran 14 sites from Fort Pierce to Key West and had 200 employees that were responsible to me. So, yes, I have management experience.
Going in time a little bit along the way, elected position, Board of Selectmen, Town of Huntington, 3-year terms, each of those with a rotating secretary, chairman over the period of time. I served as chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the town of Huntington, 16 straight years along the way. And they dedicated the town report to me at the end of that time when I retired in 1993 along the way. From a leadership position in schools along the way, bringing the students, the teachers, and the management together as principal along the way, I managed to do it fairly successfully in several schools, having 3 yearbook dedications made to me along the way. So we were able to manage successfully and have some fun as we went along.
Thank you, Rob.
Just about my whole life has been management or supervisory. I come from a family that first came to this country in the 1600s. So a lot of the development in this country and the advances and the history and the battles and everything else, I had a lot to keep up with. So I had to keep going and keep, trying to achieve, trying to improve things. I've been a manager or leader, supervisor ever since I graduated from college as well. I worked for an Adams Drug Company in New England, where I supervised a number of commercial stores. At that time, the teaching market had pretty much dried up, and I had a teaching degree. From there, I was taken out of that to a banking job, which I rose through the ranks to assistant manager, head of certain departments and whatnot. Moved to a larger bank, did the same thing, then ended up in the Howard Savings Bank, which was the biggest savings bank in the state, and was supervisor and developed the all-in-one checking, savings, and whatnot statements, working with some of the banks in New York City. After that, I was recruited from the bank for the Bell system, which was AT&T, Western Electric, and Bell Labs. So I rose quickly in that. It was a special program they had to start to raise women up in the ranks, and I went up fast in that. I was one of only 2 people in the country that had that position. I supervised installation supervisors when I first started with Western Electric, and I had 5, 6 jobs at a time in different locations around New Jersey, supervising installation teams and whatnot, basically project management. Moved from there to write a quality program for Western Electric across the country. Went into international project management and went through additional training courses and whatnot, including getting my master's in international contract law and also international project management. AT&T was great at paying for education and whatnot. So I took opportunity of that. In the meantime, if I started getting bored, I got a real estate license. I went back when I took a very early retirement from Lucent Technologies, and went back in a couple of months, and I was a consultant to AT&T. So and international again. I had jobs going on in India, El Salvador, Mexico, any place that somebody was afraid to go to, they'd send me. So, and I think I was pretty successful, quite frankly, so thank you.
Well, in my past career, I was a manager before retiring with the state agency for many years, 35 years of service. During that time, I oversaw projects, wrote and set policy based on state statutes, managed employees, prepared the budget, and learned the importance of working together, which is, I feel, very critical in working with the board members as well. I feel that you have to be willing to lead by example. I feel you have to roll up your sleeves and get the job done just like anyone else does. And if given the chance, I will continue to work hard and put Legacy's best interests at the forefront of all my decisions. Thank you.
So I've worked most of my career either in an accounting or in an IT department. And for some type of a large corporate 500 firm, I work for Wells Fargo, work for Intel. So I've managed groups, I've managed large projects, I've managed small projects. So when I thought about this, and this is curious, this was one of the questions I tended to think the most about, and an answer that really has nothing to do with the board. When I look back on my career, and I look back at what I was the happiest to achieve, it wasn't the projects, it was the people I was able to help. The folks that you could see and you could help them in their career, you could help them find what they wanted to do and sort of get them along that right path. So when I look back upon my career, I did a lot of the things that Terry mentioned. I managed budgets, you train folks, you bring people together to try to reach some type of consensus. But I think the thing I'm most proud of, there are about 4 or 5 individuals that I think I helped a lot. And that's probably what I'm the most proud of. Thank you.
As a 30-year federal employee, I managed multiple multi-million-dollar contracts for the Department of Defense. They were in the information technology field. And prior to that, it was in the telephone or telephony field. After my retirement from the federal government, I managed 150 project managers as a program manager of a multi-million-dollar contract supporting DoD health affairs. Those people were located both in Washington, D.C., in San Antonio, Texas, and in Landstuhl, Germany. Prior to that, I had managed folks in various other government positions. I was the president of a condo association in Ocean City, Maryland, before moving to Florida. I was also a member of the board of directors of my home community in Seven Lakes in Virginia near Fredericksburg. So I've had a lot of experience in managing people, managing projects, and I missed it. That's one reason why I'm involved with the board. It's not for the pay, believe me. And appreciate your time. Thank you.
So thank you all for coming out, and more importantly, thank you for volunteering to help your community. It's a lot of work. We appreciate everybody that volunteers. So that's all for the questions. The voting will be starting soon. Over the next day or two, everybody will start to receive their ballots. With the ballot, you'll get the bios that the candidates put together. It'll list a lot of what they talked about today. And you'll get to choose the 4 directors and also make a decision on